Welcome to Fly Fishing Jack Crevelle with Brent Schlinker and Dale Freschi from Sport Fishing on the Fly.
Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to our podcast here at Path It On. Today, we're going to be talking about the most underrated saltwater game fish, the Jack Crevelle. They're known as the water wolves because they hunt in packs, and I'll tell you, they are very exciting. And today, we have our guest, Dale Freschi, Sport Fishing on the Fly. He's been a long-time fishing buddy of mine, and he's been targeting jacks all over the country. He's been in Cuba, Belize, and Florida. And so, Dale, we'd like to welcome you to the podcast here today and let us know a little bit about your excursions chasing these jacks.
Great. Thanks, Brent. Thanks for having me back. And always nice to talk about, especially, for saltwater fishing and tropical fishing. Jacks usually don't get, they don't get mentioned as much. You talk about tarpon and permit, bonefish, and they live pretty much everywhere they do. And boy, it's something you really want to do, because a lot of the rigging you use is very similar to what you'd use for some of the other species. And jacks aren't very picky. They'll hit all kinds of different flies and things. So jacks, I think, if you haven't fished for Jack Crevelle, it's something definitely, if you're going to the tropics, it's something to look at targeting for sure. They're a great species. I think, me and you have done it in Florida with Diane down there when I come and see you there. And the nice thing about, what I really like about jacks is, like you said, they're very aggressive. They hunt in packs. We used to call them the thugs of the flats, because they would get in big groups and they would basically corner their prey. You'd see big schools of bait fish jumping around, and the jacks would be gorging on them, and they're super aggressive and not picky. When they're in their feeding mode, they're grabbing everything they see in those schools. So that makes them they're shaped very similar to like a permit. They've got that kind of a saucery shape, which are really tough to land them, very difficult to land. Whereas a permit, people talk about targeting permit fishing. They're finicky, very finicky. They'll nose to fly. They'll look at this. Jacks, if you get it in front of them, they're typically eating it. And I think most of the time it's because they're competitive. They're in a group. They're normally in big schools. And that's why they're so aggressive.
They want to be the first one of the snack, don't they?
Well, they do. And I think the other thing that's really good about that is that they're easy to find. When they're in big groups like that, it's not like you're trying to target a single fish or a small little group. Sometimes, last time we were in Belize, at Belize River Lodge, just outside of the mouth of the river, there was the school that we hit. There was probably 500 jacks in the school. You could see you just look out over the water, and there's be this giant, big, dark patch moving, and that's a big school of jacks moving. And man, when you get into that, you can have days. And if they stick around, in the bay and stuff like that, you can have days and days of targeting them, because they're just in there until the bait fish take off out of there. They'll just be feeding on them voraciously for, they could be in there for a week or two. So anyway, they're easier to find, very, very good fish to target. They're very strong, and that's probably something you'd want to talk about your setup, what you'd want to set up to fish for them. So, normally what we would do, a lot of times you'd think 8-weight rod. Your bonefish rod is an 8-weight rod with 200 yards of backing. And once again, these jacks will eat your bonefish fly, your shrimp imitation. They'll eat a tarpon fly. They eat poppers on the surface. They eat anything that looks like a bait fish, or even, like I say, a shrimp or whatever. They're just voracious feeders. So we would, when we first saw them, we were, I think, in Cuba, and we cast for them with a bonefish rod, 8-weight, 200 yards of backing. Not enough. Not enough. We were spooled off. I don't know how many we lost, where they take the entire 200 yards of backing off. And these are probably jacks in the 10, 15 pound range. And they would spool you. And they're almost impossible to land with an 8-weight. So we had to we had to use our 10-weight permit rods, which, we target permit from 15 to 30 pounds roughly. That's the rod you need for the jacks. You really need a 10-weight with that same amount. I always have, the one I use is 10 weight with 300 yards of backing on a big reel.
perfect
target.
rig for that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and they get big, and you've done it with me in Florida. And look at the monster you caught down there that time. That was probably what that jack must have weighed 30 pounds. Hey,
yeah, he was dragging the boat around. They pull pretty hard. Yeah,
they
yeah.
pull hard.
That's a long fight. I mean, you got to roll up your sleeves and go to work when you hook them big ones like that.
Oh, yeah, it could take you a long time. It's not like you're going to land them in a matter of minutes.
No.
It's you're in there for the long run. And like I said, they get into various. I think the majority are usually in that 10. Well, small is 5, the smaller ones, up to about 15 pounds. And then, of course, there's some larger ones that, the 15 to 30 or even larger type class that you can get into as well. But the norm that you're catching, I would think the norm that we catch where we fish for them, Florida, Belize, in Cuba, most of the ones I've caught have been in the 10 to 20 pound range, roughly. So,
well, you even take a 6 or an 8 pound jack, it's a great catch. They are very underrated. I mean, pound for pound, they do put on the pressure, don't they?
They do. And the other thing that I really like about them, that where people should target, again, they're not picky. And one of the biggest things they can be very much surface feeders. So some of the stuff that we use, I know when you first did it, we were looking at flies we use for snook. You had these gurglers that were on the surface that snook would hit, and popper type flies that even tarpon will hit and stuff on the surface. Jacks are notorious for taking stuff off the surface. They love to look, they're chasing the schools up anyway, so.
You have to ask these guides if you find a school of jacks, get in there, and I'll tell you, you'll have a great day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the biggest thing is a lot of times, again, they're not usually on their catch list or their target list, just like barracuda. They're not on, they're incidental.
Yeah,
and we've had great days.
Junk species to them for some reason, You
switch and you got your rigged for it anyway.
That's right.
You got all the gear. Basically, your permit rod's perfect. You get rigged up, you get in there, and you can have a lot of fun. Like you had mentioned that day in Cuba, that was one of our best days, Rick. We got frustrated. We were fishing for a bunch of permit that weren't very bitey. We caught a few bonefish.
An interesting thing I was just thinking as you were talking there, Dale, I remember
permit that weren't very bitey. We caught a few bonefish, and then we kept seeing these schools of jacks, and we said to the guide, well, we'd like to target these jacks. Well, we ended up having probably one of the best days, or we probably landed 25 jacks through the day that we had an epic day catching jacks. Matter of fact, it's one of our last days where we just said, we don't even want to go for the other species now. We want to target jacks for the next few days. So,
absolutely. Yeah, it'll change your mind. That's correct. You'll have a whole different insight on it. Yeah,
it will, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, like I say, it doesn't need any kind of extra special gear. The gear you've got rigged for the others will work for jacks. They have soft mouths, so it's not like you have to have those big tarpon leaders, with the big thick and so on. It's usually, I found if you've got, what we fish for with permit, I usually got about a 20 pound tippet strength on there. And if you got the same thing for the jack, that'll typically work about the same way. But with that 10-weight rod, with lots of backing, because they're going to give you a heck of a balance. So,
yeah.
And the other thing I think good you saw in Florida, what was the other nice thing about jacks, is they'll hang around marinas. They'll hang in areas where, there was a few days we were going to go out. Brent, remember, you get blown off the water. There was hurricane force winds out there in the bay. You couldn't get out to fish, and the jacks would hang around in the marina under the docks and so on. They'd go in the little bays, so you were totally sheltered, and you can have a ball fishing for these jacks all around. It's like I liken it to the North American fishing, like the bass that hang around, docks and things like that.
Yep.
So you didn't have to get out. You can't get out in the flat. You can target them in these sheltered areas. If you've got a real windy day, you can have a heck of a good time with jacks. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, they're not hard to find. Like I say, many days you'll see them up boiling. I mean, it's they'll give themselves up pretty easy. It's just a feeding frenzy. So you just jump in there and You're not chasing anything away. They're in there feeding. So it's a great experience. I really like fishing for them. It's kind of like when we go up north fishing steelhead or salmon or whatever. I mean, what about the chum salmon? There's another one we talk about someday. There's another very underrated fish for
Yeah, it doesn't get targeted. You're right. Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Those are a couple of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing
take
with
a
the
rocket
jacks,
scientist to catch them. I mean, they're easy to catch, but they're just a hell of a fight. Just want to roll up your sleeves and go to work. There you go.
well,
Yeah.
and lots of fun to catch.
Sure they are. Sure they are.
And I think with the jacks too, the other thing that you mentioned when I was thinking of that when we were fishing around Florida and the big schools and targeting them, a lot of times they're in the area because they stick around. If there's bait fish have been in the area, and we've had this happen in other places we've been to, we don't see any. They're not boiling on the surface anymore. They're still running around the bay.
Right.
They're usually more dispersed a little bit, and you don't see the giant school boiling on the bait fish, but they're looking. So a lot of times you can do blind casting. How many times have we just done blind casting with a popper, popping it on the surface with nothing going on, and out of nowhere, a big jack will come up and hammer, right?
Yeah.
So you can find them that way too.
Yeah, that's right. Once you know your water and know where the bait are hanging out, it's not hard at all. And that's a trouble a lot of times when you go to new water, new locations, and you don't know where to locate the fish. It's like fishing a lake or a river, whatever. I mean, there's only a portion of the water that holds fish. So once you understand where the fish are, like I was in Florida so many years that, I just knew where to go, right? Yeah. And there was always fish there. I mean, you never had to go without too many times. So it was a great experience. Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, no, it'd be something, if you're going tropical fishing, make sure you take that into consideration. Tell your guys, you probably got some flies there too. Do you have some flies?
I was gonna show everybody. You can just buy these popper style flies at any of the fishing stores, and you can throw them with a fly rod, no problem at all. And they make they do really well. And these little crease flies, these little crease poppers here, they're another good one there. So you gals are just going in with, when there's shops, you can pick those up. We caught lots of them on just, streamer flies, here's my bait fish pattern, catch them on that. Anything you're fishing, snook or whatever species, I'll eat anything basically. But the most fun has always been is the topwater action, right?
Yeah.
That's what I like fishing the most is, here's a little kind of a gurgler, a shrimp gurgler that I tie. And, I've got that on my channel as well. Anybody wants to learn how to tie that. It's quite easy and they're super light, eh, Dale? They cast so nice.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we've ever had one get chewed up too much to, there's that shrimp one. And then another good color was just white, wasn't it?
Yeah, white. Yeah. White was good too.
Yeah. And, you'll be throwing that around. You'll get a tarpon on that too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You do randomly catch other fish. And I think, the other thing when you were talking about subsurface, the light bulb fly, of course, is great. Subsurface, it's white. And if we're fishing for them under the surface, but again, they're in there and aggressive. And a lot of times, I think for most fly fishermen, it's that visual, that surface type takes that really drive it. And that's the attraction to me for jacks. It's that they're aggressive, they fight hard, and you get that action where I can see them chase and take the fly. And you can see them coming, when they're popping on it. They'll sometimes, when they hit that popper sometimes goes 10 feet in the air when they shoot up and hit the fly. And, so that to me,
that's the exciting part about it. Like you say, it's all the topwater action. It's incredible. It's a lot of fun. Absolutely.
Yeah, you catch them on subsurface. You get lots the same way. Like they say, light bulb's good. Some of those ones that bait fish patterns. But boy, when you find them, if you go in that, because they'll easily take on the surface, even if you don't see them moving around the surface. Like I say, throw a popper up there and you plug it around, make it make that noise, give it those big pops. And they'll shock you. Sometimes you're stripping it really quickly, they'll chase it and
And
hammer
they'll
it.
rip the rod
Other
out of your
times
hand.
you give it a couple pops, sitting stationary. You're looking the other way. Remember, I turn around to talk to you and Diane about what we're having for
Yep.
lunch. You hear a giant whoosh, and down your popper
Yep.
goes. Like they just
There you go.
take it off the
Yep.
surface and
Yep.
go. So, yeah.
But you think about how many times a person's been on the saltwater, fishing bonefish, for example, or a tarpon or something, especially, well, there's nothing tougher than a permit. You need good conditions. You need low wind. You got to be able to spot these fish, and you're going to have to throw some good long casts at some of these fish, clean casts. And I'll tell you, if you're struggling, don't forget to ask your guide or take a run at them jacks, because it'll make a kind of a disappointing day into a really great day. You'll have a lot of fun. So don't forget that. I think that was one reason I sure wanted to talk about Jack Crevelle with you, because it's not discussed much, or you don't see any pictures in magazines about guys holding Jack Crevelle. They're always wanting the permit, and I mean they're the pinnacle, right? I mean, if you get permits, great, and we've all enjoyed catching those too.
Well, I think that's the whole thing. It's when you're going for these other species, it's all around the hunter, the fisherman, the angling skill to try to catch those species, which is all great because you do want that. But man, when you want to have a blast, and like you said, if conditions are there, and we've been in some trips where we have, like you said, we've taken a beating where the tarpon, the conditions aren't right. Wind is up or this and that, you can't see them on the flat, the bonefish is too rift, whatever it is, the water's dirty. All of a sudden jacks come into play and you can have a great time. So some of our best tropical trips I can think of, we've had jacks in the mix. Every time I've had one of my best tropical trips, the jacks are always in the mix. Oh
yes.
Thanks for joining us today, and we would like to thank Dale Freschi for another interesting podcast. Don't forget to put Jack Crevelle on your target species list. These water wolves get their name by no mistake. They are very worthy adversaries for beginner to advanced fly anglers. Thanks for watching Brent's Fly Fishing Instructional Series. He can be found on Brent's YouTube channel and Sport Fishing on the Fly.